The story begins with a brutal war. Among all who fight, one stands out. He has incredible sword skills and wears dark clothes. He is Prince Arnold Hine, waging war against the whole world. Entering the castle, all the remaining soldiers protect the entrance where the princes of that kingdom are. There we see Riche, our dear protagonist. Arnold walks slowly and easily subdues all his opponents, one by one. Even with an open counterattack, Riche can barely touch him. She vomits blood, her enemy's sword piercing her completely. She thinks about having lived this life to the fullest, but in the next. Thus, time rewinds. It goes back to the time when she was rejected by her fiancé, a prince. But she simply accepts and snubs that prince as if he were not important at all. She walks away and thinks about having come back again. This is her 7th life. She still remembers her first life. She was indeed very surprised when she was rejected by that prince. He accused her of various false crimes, and because of that, her own parents abandoned her. She was at the mercy of the streets, wandering aimlessly until she fell to her knees on a dirt road, wondering what she would do now. That's when she meets the traveling merchants, the traders. The leader of that band asks Riche if she would like to join them and go to the next city. His group mocks him, but he says he knows how to judge people. He admires Riche's clothes. Even in the moonlight, the fabric is beautiful. Just by looking, he guesses where those clothes are from, thus saying that she must be a noble. With that, she takes off her ring and offers it for sale, which catches the merchant's attention. She travels with the group. We see that they are like adventurers, seeking goods that ignite their hearts and selling them to people who get just as excited as they do. When the seller and the buyer love the product, it creates profit. That's the motto of the Aria Trading Company. Riche admires this very much. The merchant sees that she liked it and that she is like a blank canvas. He invites her to go on a journey with him. She is no longer bound to a prince. She can go wherever she wants. She is free to do what she wants. I like the motto of these merchants. So, in her first life, Riche learned about commerce from Tully, the leader. Later, she set out alone on a new journey, awakening a hidden dream of knowing and visiting all the countries. When she was missing one country, she was involved in a war and ended up losing her life. So she went back for the first time to her checkpoint. She is surprised by all this. She thinks it's a dream and pinches her cheeks. She sees that all this is indeed real and thinks it's a second chance that God gave her. She remembers that in her past life, the only thing she regretted was not taking more personal belongings with her, resources to use as merchandise. She is eager to see Tully and the Aria Trading Company again. But when she reached her destination, they had already passed. She took too long to pick up her things. Not knowing what to do, Riche opens her suitcase and finds a book of medicinal plants that her grandmother left her. Unlike her last life, this time she has money, so she just needs to decide what to do with it. So, in her second life, she sold everything she had and used the money to cross the sea and learn medicine. She studied various plants and made good use of the experience she gained in her first life. One day, she traveled to a kingdom and saved a prince with her knowledge, for which he was immensely grateful and impressed. Her life was rewarding and fulfilling, but again, she ended up involved in the war and died. Thus, time rewinds again to her checkpoint. In her third life, she decided to embark on an academic study journey with a person she met in her previous life. Dr. Michelle Evan. She studied with the doctor for several years, and after that, she continued her journey alone, but again ended up involved in the war and died once more. In her fourth life, she served as a maid for a wealthy duke. In her sixth life, she pretended to be a man and became a knight. Why didn't she mention her fifth life? Anyway, in all lives, she felt fulfilled and happy, however. In all her lives, after 5 years, she always died. So we come to her seventh life. This time she decides to take it easy. She wants to have a long life this time. Now that she stopped to think, she always left the castle through the main entrance, but as she is now, she thinks it will be faster to jump from the balcony. But as she turns the corner, she comes face to face with none other than Arnold, the prince who took her previous life. Riche screams in surprise, calling him the Emperor. Arnold is surprised that this stranger knows him, even though it's the first time they've seen each other. Riche then explains that his fame precedes him. But Arnold says that his father is still alive, so he could not be called an emperor, only a prince. With no alternative, Riche apologizes. She explains that her engagement has just ended, and she is in a hurry, so she goes to the balcony, takes off her shoes, and jumps. Arnold is astonished. This reckless act, completely opposite to women, stirred something in his heart. Riche lands and rolls on the ground, breaking the heels of her shoes, and goes on her way. This makes Arnold smile. Oliver, his most loyal servant, appears there, and Arnold asks him to prepare his horse. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, he is hopelessly in love. Hey dude, do you want to learn how to draw or improve your technique? Or even become a master professional in drawing and create your own manga? At Anime Art Academy, you can learn from professionals from Japan themselves, experts in the art of manga. But hold on, you don't have to pay anything yet, you can take a free sample course and give it a try. So what are you waiting for? It's free, and a true otaku knows how to draw. Link in the description or pinned comment. Back to Riche, she complains that her current body is weak and needs to train everything again. On her walk, she comes across a crowd looking for her. Then her ex-fiancé, happy to find her, goes to her, spitting arrogance and excessive ego. Which doesn't surprise Riche at all. She sees that this time, she was not on time and even ran into her ex-fiancé. He is egocentric again and says he can see that despite her indifference in his declaration, she is deeply sad because he broke off the engagement with her. He mentions Riche's dirty dress and that she was sad wandering the streets. But she asks if he is an idiot. Sadness doesn't dirty dresses. She is also not at all sad that he broke off the engagement. This makes the people there whisper, seeing that the prince seems more hurt than she is. This annoys the prince, who complains. Riche is relieved not to have spent any of her lives with him. She reminds him that his duty is to protect the kingdom and its subjects, not the other way around. And she also mentions that she is very relieved that he broke off the engagement. Which makes the guards laugh. Then there appears the new pretender to the prince, Donzella Marie, who tells Riche to stop treating her prince badly. The prince says he heard that Riche made her cry, and he won't forgive that. Riche says there's no problem, she will obey the engagement termination decree. She remembers that everything she sought up to that point was to be the bride of the crown prince, which she thought was all she could achieve as a woman. But now she sees that she can find her own worth and has everything for it. Thus, she says she doesn't need the prince for anything. This makes the prince stagger. Riche also tells Marie that she doesn't know what lies she told to incriminate her, but she doesn't feel anger about it. She sees that Marie seeks her family's well-being with the marriage. Riche warns her that if her future is not desired by herself, it will never make sense. It is possible to find happiness for her family and for herself as well. So she leaves and thinks about what to do this time. The prince orders the guards to arrest her, and they ask her to wait. At that moment, Riche feels an overwhelming presence. She grabs the sword of the guard behind her and defends a blow. A blow from Arnold. He knew she would defend, he was fascinated by her, and he asks where she learned those skills. She sees that he held back with that blow. The crown prince retorts asking who she is. But Riche tells them to back off, they cannot use violence against the heir of Gokheim. This impresses everyone. Arnold is famous for having decimated an entire army alone. Riche then asks him what he is doing there, surely he didn't use his sword for fun. Arnold took her past life and will also cause a war that will involve the whole world. The same war that took Riche's lives. Arnold kneels, which surprises Riche. He asks for forgiveness for his rudeness just now and thus, he asks her to marry him. He indeed proposed to her. The same man responsible for her death 6 times in a row knelt before that moonlight and asked for Riche's hand in marriage. What would you do in her place? Everyone there is impressed, including Riche herself, who immediately refuses, but Arnold finds it amusing. At that moment, the king of that empire appears, his son is going to whine to him, but he pays no attention and decides to clean the floor. He kneels and apologizes to Riche for the broken engagement and asks her to consider Arnold's proposal. In response, she says that such a thing would not cause any enmity, but she would like to talk with Riche in her quarters. She ends up accepting. Already in Arnold's quarters, Riche is still confused by all this, but Arnold simply says that he has fallen madly in love with her. In her first life, she would have seized this chance without thinking twice, but now she knows that life offers various choices. Now, Riche wonders about the reason behind Arnold causing that war and if she could find out by standing by his side. Thus, she decides and proposes conditions for her to stay with him. She would roam aimlessly through the castle, and Arnold couldn't lay a finger on her. Later, the two set off on a journey to Arnold's kingdom. The carriages pass through various places, and along the way, Riche takes the opportunity to cultivate some medicinal plants. At a certain point in the journey, she ends up falling asleep, leaning over a sword. She wakes up with Arnold approaching, which makes her repeat what she had said before. However, he only wanted to retrieve what she had taken from him, and we see that the sword was actually Arnold's own. Riche noticed Arnold's presence even during sleep, and he finds that impressive. He then mentions having summoned the trading company chosen by Riche, Tully's Merchants. She's excited to see them in this life and ends up getting lost in the beauty of Arnold's face without realizing it. Thus they are interrupted by an enemy attack. Arnold gets out of the carriage and tells Riche to stay there and behave. But Riche ignores him and opens the door with a hairpin. When she sees the battle had already ended, Arnold easily defeated everyone there, but he didn't kill any of them. So his soldiers take care of the wounded on both sides. This intrigues Riche. One of the allied soldiers was injured with poison, although not fatal, he would be in pain for several days. So, Riche says she can make an antidote. She uses the plants she picked along the way and makes a juice mixture. But she thinks they might be suspicious of her somehow. Taking the poisoned knife, she cuts herself, immediately trying to stop her, but she shows that everything is fine, and uses the antidote on the wound, speaking about the properties of the plants. They then treat the wounded. Oliver talks about Arnold's trust, who even brought Riche along to the battle. Despite his sword defending the nation's interests better, Riche acted on her own. In her life as a servant, she learned to unlock doors since her mistress always locked herself in her room. Arnold thought the flowers were just decorative. He is amazed with each new discovery about his beloved. Speaking about his soldiers, Arnold points out that one of the wounded used to live on the streets, earned his current position with his own effort. Another was injured trying to protect the youngest of them. He cares about his knights, and that catches Riche's attention. Thus, Arnold kneels before her and thanks her for saving them. Riche doesn't understand anything anymore. It's as if he were another person. Is he pretending? We find out that the knights looked at her strangely, thinking that Riche was some enemy, since she is from another kingdom, and the information passed to the Emperor of Gokheim was that Arnold became interested in her and abducted her. In other words, Riche is considered a hostage. Despite possibly being discriminated against in Gokheim, Arnold's kingdom, she finds it all great. Being a hostage, she won't have to participate in official duties, so she can stay idle. She mentions that Arnold almost touched her hand earlier, to which he replies that it was inevitable. Gokheim influences all other countries in the world. This was the only place that Riche couldn't visit in all her other lives. She is amazed by the tremendous beauty of the place. Arriving at the destination, Arnold says that the countryside house where Riche would stay couldn't be prepared in time, so he offers her a noble's room. However, she says that such comfort is not necessary, and she will be happy in the countryside house, even if it has been unused for years. After all, she is a hostage. Arnold wonders why she seems so proud of it. Upon arrival, the house was indeed very dusty. The maid inside Riche was yelling to get out, and she is excited to tidy everything up. Then, the knights she helped before offer to help with heavy things. In a few years, Arnold will kill his father, the Emperor. And so the war will begin. Riche knows this, and even though it's useless, she wants to keep him away from his father as much as possible. She is totally against war. If not for that, she would have had a long life full of comfort. Later, Riche realizes that she has finally managed to fulfill her dream of visiting all countries and admires the beautiful view. Then she senses Arnold's presence, which he finds incredible. Even hiding his presence and keeping his distance, she managed to feel him. Riche asks about the points in the city that she observes, and Arnold responds to what each of them is. She is very amazed, making Arnold wonder why she finds it so amusing. She talks about her dream and that it was the final push for her to accept coming with him. Even though Arnold says that City has nothing worthy of her attention, she disagrees, saying that just by the points he mentioned, the city becomes incredibly beautiful. Arnold has never met anyone like Riche, all her combat skills, medicine, general knowledge. A lady doesn't need any of that. This reminds Riche of her past. Her mother always insisted that her destiny was to marry into the royal family and have an heir. She didn't need to learn anything else besides how to be a wife and maintain appearances. She admires every part of the knowledge of this world and asserts that she herself decides what is unnecessary or not. This time, she can't help but touch her. That's exactly what made Arnold fall in love with her. She is free to do whatever she wants, and he will support all her decisions. All her skills enchant his heart. Riche still insists that he lies. So, he leaves and tells her to think of something she wants, because this time he broke the taboo of touching her. Yes, he really stirred Riche up. She can hardly keep her balance. On another day, Riche wakes up from a good night's sleep and is quickly summoned by Oliver, Arnold's personal servant. She hastily gets dressed and answers the door. Oliver apologizes for appearing so early, mentioning it would be difficult to find another time due to the unfinished duties with the prince. Riche learns that Oliver has been assisting Arnold for 10 years and sees that he genuinely cares about him. He even assesses her without drawing attention, but Riche is very perceptive and tells him he can analyze as much as he wants, surprising Oliver, who apologizes. Arnold has never fallen in love with anyone, and the fact that he asked for Riche's hand surprises Oliver greatly. Oliver then hands her the list of honor guests as requested by the prince. Later, we see Diana, one of the most experienced servants. Her younger colleagues ask for her help, but Diana is arrogant and expects them to do things perfectly without any experience. Riche visits Arnold in his office and surprises him with her attire. She asks him if she can personally choose her own servants as a form of payment for him touching her. Arnold agrees but mentions that the party that day is only to show that the prince is looking for someone. But Riche sees no shame in being a princess hostage there and asks Arnold to feel free to reveal her as his actual wife. Arnold sees that he now seems to have permission to touch her, to which Riche responds that in that case, they are wearing gloves. At the party, Arnold is surrounded by some guests, one of whom introduces his daughter in an attempt to get closer to him. But Arnold shows that he has already found his wife, impressing everyone, especially the women who see him smiling. Jealousy, envy, and ulterior motives surround Riche, but compared to the public breakup of her engagement, this is nothing. Arnold thought it would be best to make it clear to everyone as soon as possible that Riche is under his protection. Riche is astonished. The man who ended her life in her previous existence is now protecting her. She mentions that she doesn't think there's anyone scarier than him in the art of the sword, and certainly not even she could defeat him. Arnold says that maybe they could train together someday, to which Riche happily agrees. All of Riche's reactions exceed Arnold's expectations, even though she is interested in the attacking method from before. The music begins to play, and Arnold doesn't want to force Riche to dance, but she sees no reason not to. They get very close, just like that day. Riche tries numerous times to take control of the dance to see Arnold's reaction, but it's as if his steps say, no matter how hard you try, it's useless. Despite being so close to each other, Arnold never invades Riche's space. That's what a true romantic is. Everyone is amazed at their mastery. On the last step, Arnold pulls Riche with force, destabilizing her, and she's sure she's going to fall. But Arnold holds her like a true gentleman. Despite everyone's admiration, some girls try to provoke Riche with a spicy wine, but she only realizes this in the aroma and drinks it, saying that it's indeed an exotic drink, and thanks them for the reception. Later, she tries to finish drinking the wine outside. Arnold appears there, asking what's spicy. The wine has lost all its flavor, but Riche thinks the least she can do is drink it all. Arnold takes the glass from her hand and consumes everything. Indeed, it was spicy. Arnold asks whom she was thinking about during the dance, catching Riche off guard. However, she can't say she was thinking about her future self. So she says she was worried about his health, noticing that his left side movement is slightly slower, and there must be a wound in the neck area. And indeed, there's an old wound that slightly contracts his skin. Rish is amazed. That was the result of a blade hitting him several times with the intention of finishing him off. Very few people know about this wound, and no one has ever noticed it just by looking. Rish asks what caused it, but Arnold changes the subject, saying the night is getting chilly and leaves. The next day, Rish pretends to be a servant again. Diana passes by and is arrogant again, hurrying her younger colleagues and complaining about the work they did before. Rish offers to help them, and Diana wonders how she manages to have so much time to help. Rish notices she carries a paper with notes, deducing that Diana can write. The younger colleagues apologize to Rish. They can't remember everything. Rish is kind and says it's always harder at first. Rish learns that Diane comes from a wealthy family, but they went into debt and lost a lot. During the presentation of the servant's choice, all of them stand ready in the country house that Rish herself cleaned. Diana is amazed at how clean everything is and wonders who could have cleaned it. Finally, the princess appears, and Oliver announces her. Diana can't believe her eyes, just like everyone else. Rish wanted to learn their reality, so she pretended to be a common servant. She announces her chosen servants, and despite having 3 professionals there, she didn't choose any of them. Diana doesn't accept this. She gave her all for this position her whole life. Rish then says that from today on, Diana will no longer be a servant. Rish asks her if, at the beginning, she did her duties the same way she does now. Diana confesses that no, she couldn't remember how to do everything, and the more experienced ones were always busy. So she observed and learned, and despite becoming one of the best, she had something that all the others didn't. She already knew how to read and write. Very few families received the same education. Despite becoming an elite servant, Diana couldn't understand why all the others couldn't keep up, and now she realizes she never taught them properly. Rish then has an idea. She wants to turn that country house into a servant training center, with Diane as one of the instructors. They would all learn to read and write and have an advantage in many things. Later, Rish dresses up and intends to form an alliance with the merchants she met in her previous life. And thus, she reunites with Tully. Tully introduces himself, and even though Rish already knows him, she still feels like he knows everything about her just by looking into her eyes. She tries to do business with him, but Tully says he has nothing to sell to her. He can see Rish's great determination. She's practically betting her life on this negotiation, and he has nothing that can match such determination. So, he congratulates her on her marriage and wishes her happiness as the future princess heir, then leaves. Later, Rish thinks about Chief Tully's refusal. She knows he chooses his clients well so that the client always needs him. She remembers him mentioning enjoying the city a little, so she gets an idea. During the night, Tully and his companions have fun in a tavern, and there, he meets Rish, disguised with a different hair color. She competes in a drinking contest with all of them and emerges victorious. Tully then agrees to restart the negotiation. His intuition tells him he should have Rish as a business partner, not as a client. However, he won't accept anything without knowing the business plan she has, but Rish can't tell him. Tully finds it amusing. She says interesting things indeed, like forming a contract without him knowing anything and without any certainty of profit. We know Arnold is going to start a war soon, and Rish intends to stop it with a plan, but she can't talk to Tully about it. He trusts his intuition a lot, but results are more important. So, Rish quotes something he said, which surprises him. She promises to find a business that works in the capital, and in return, Tully will reconsider his decision, taking that into account. They toast, and Rish says goodbye but leaves a bag of medicine for Tully's men. Upon returning home, Rish unexpectedly comes face to face with Arnold, who was waiting patiently for her. He worries and asks if she's hurt, and says that the next time she visits the city, he'll go with her. Rish thinks it's inappropriate for Arnold to indulge his whims, but he retorts, reminding her that she can do whatever she wants but shouldn't put herself in danger. He knows her well, and if he forbade her from going out, she'd find a way to sneak out again. So, it would be better to impose conditions. Rish is so hard to read that she surprises Arnold with every action. Then, Rish asks if he's hungry, and he says it depends on what he's going to eat. Rish then prepares a soup, but she finds it horrible. She adds more seasoning, but it ends up getting worse. Rish apologizes and asks Arnold if there's anything else he'd like to eat. She hasn't dedicated herself to cooking in any of her lives. Arnold tastes it and sees that it's good. Rish thinks he must not have a good palate. But he retorts immediately, asking if she's thinking something disrespectful. She denies it and thanks him. They eat the soup while Rish explains the situation about the Arya merchants. Arnold, as always, says she can do whatever she wants, even though she didn't tell him the real reason and didn't tell the merchants either. He leaves, warning Rish about his younger brother, and that she shouldn't get involved with him. She tries to find out why, but Arnold decides she doesn't need to know. Rish decides to study about the city and its market, spending several nights on it. Arnold talks to Oliver about Rish cooking, even though she didn't know, it was good, but he finds it strange that she used medicinal herbs in the soup. The next morning, as Rish goes to her garden as usual, always accompanied by the knights she helped, they come across a homeless person sleeping on the ground. He wakes up and calls her sister-in-law. This is Arnold's younger brother, Theodore August Hein. He finds out she made that flower bed, which he refers to as a bed. He says there's something wrong in a certain place there, making Rish approach. Then he says he came to save her, she's a hostage of Arnold, not a princess. Rish says she knows all this and that Arnold has a lot of consideration for her. Theodore ponders this and then leaves. Rish sees that Theodore introduced himself emphasizing as second in the succession of the kingdom. She found this strange. Her guards know about Arnold's brother and his involvement, but they can't say anything about it. Sooner or later, Rish will have to deal with this, but her priority is the agreement with Tully. On the way, she sees Arnold discussing maintaining the protection of the people and not favoring the nobles. The other man finds it absurd and mentions that his father won't like it. Arnold tells him to put himself in his place. He sees Rish, who feels a little embarrassed at this moment, so she makes a gesture of strength, and he smiles again. Then Arnold intends to send letters to each noble, explaining that the guard will remain the same for commoners and nobles and that by protecting the commoners, taxes would be paid in greater quantity, giving the nobles more money. In her studies, Rish remembers that Arnold created several rules that prioritize the people, totally different from the impression she had of him. Upon returning to her room, Rish sees a letter with a meeting point, with Arnold's name signed. But upon arriving there, she already knew she would find Theodore. Theodore speaks about his brother, calling him a killer and saying that he finished off their own mother. And soon, he'll do the same to Rish. Despite being surprised, she doesn't fall for it. She says she's fully aware of who Arnold is, and yet, she'll still be his wife. This surprises Theodore, who asks if she heard what he just said. She tells him their conversation is over, and it's better to deal with his brother. Arnold startles Theodore just with his presence. And he reminds him that he ordered him to stay away from Rish. Theodore shrinks, but also laughs at Rish. He apologizes and leaves. Arnold also scolds Rish, but she mentions she couldn't ignore a call from the prince himself and responded to the letter in his name. That's why he came to the location. Rish doesn't understand why they find him so cruel. It's true that he finished off enemies, but what he does for his people is very kind, and she uses herself as an example. Arnold calls her foolish and says she's only there to be used, that she's his hostage. But Rish doesn't believe a word he says. She's seen and knows very well what his true self is. Arnold is surprised again and asks what this great determination she has is. A determination compared to warriors on the battlefield who are willing to give their own lives for their convictions. This awakens Arnold's admiration on so many levels that he can't even express. Rish talks about having dreams where she dies constantly and wakes up right after. However, she's afraid she may have already died, and this life of hers is just a big interrupted dream. But either way, she has decided, whatever her fate in this life may be. What she has is the determination to live as his wife. Arnold holds Rish's chin, gently forcing her to look up, and then they kiss for the first time. Rish can barely rationalize the situation. Arnold calls her foolish. She doesn't need determination to be his woman. The next day, Rish finds herself thinking about her kiss with Arnold, wondering what that was. Her closest servant, Elsie, arrives and notices that Riche has painted nails. Riche was inspired by a custom from the East, so she used plants to give color to a nail treatment, thus not only strengthening them but also making them beautiful. This will be her merchandise to surprise Tully. Later, Riche presents her new merchandise to Tully. It's small and easy to transport, and it would work very well as a souvenir for the workers who come and go from the city. Tully likes it a lot, certainly, women would love it. However, Riche has a deeper plan with this. There are still many poor regions in the country. This product is easy to produce, but on a large scale, it would be quite labor-intensive. Thus, several job opportunities could be created. She mentions one of Tully's phrases from her past life. They can choose their clients, but now with this idea, they could create their clients. This indeed surprises Tully, who laughs at this brilliant idea. The Aria merchants would sell the products to the commoners, and the commoners would make the final item, later selling them. However, Tully still sees how much Riche wants to ally with them, and he can wear her out for a while longer, pointing out the flaws in her plan. Riche was already expecting this, so she prepared something. So, she shows him her letter. Tully is astonished and asks where she got it. In her first life, Riche met Aria, Tully's sister, who has a difficult disease to cure. With the knowledge she acquired in her lives, she cultivated special herbs to serve as medicine to cure Aria with a 1-year treatment. Tully doesn't seem convinced. After all, Riche is not a doctor. However, she reminds him of the bag of medicines she left for his men, and it did work and cured their hangovers. She made it herself. Tully always says they must learn to choose their clients, but now, Riche has completely reversed the situation, him needing her now. But she says she doesn't intend to use her sister as a pawn in the deal, and she'll leave the medicines with him anyway. All she wants is for him to help her bring the opportunity to the people who need it, because just as he has his sister who needs help, other families also have their loved ones and children who sacrifice their dreams to bring sustenance to their own families. Tully is so astonished to hear these words that he immediately kneels before her. And he sees how immature he has been all this time. He never even thought about this case regarding the poorest people, and he's ashamed of his arrogance. And so, the Aria merchants form an incredible alliance with Riche and the Empire. Later, Riche feels happy to have finally succeeded, but she can't stop to celebrate. As she gets up, she feels dizzy. She lost several nights putting her plans into action. At that moment, Arnold's 2 knights who always accompanied her appear. Riche asks Camille, the redhead, to call Elsie. Meanwhile, the blonde man went to find Oliver to check on the princess's condition. But when they get there, Riche has disappeared. And so, we find out that Elsie and Camille work for Theodore and took advantage of Riche's indisposition to capture her. I really wasn't expecting this plot twist. Later, Theodore appears to Riche, and she asks him why he did that, and Theodore responds that it was to provoke his brother, of course. When Arnold had never given him attention, he only looked at him when he interacted with Riche. This made Theodore's heart feel at peace. But Riche says that he actually wants to get closer to Arnold. Theodore's expression changes and he leaves with Camille and Elsie. So we find out that in fact, Riche already knew that Camille and Elsie were helping Theodore. The two are from a poor region of the kingdom, a region that Theodore himself helps to improve. She suspected this and connected the dots. Even though they had orders to arrest Riche, they genuinely care about her and confirm that she will not be harmed. So Riche plans to be arrested as Theodore ordered. In another room, we see Theodore arguing with Arnold, throwing in his face that he captured Riche and now he will do whatever he says. He demands to be first in line for succession, and that Arnold renounce his right to the throne. Arnold shows no reaction, but Theodore is sure that he is concerned about Riche. After all, he shows interest in her, treats her well, and wants to be by her side. Unlike him, he insists that Arnold admit defeat. Arnold asks if he left Riche in a prison. Theodore says she is surrounded by guards on a high floor with windows, but there is no way to escape. Arnold is surprised that there are windows. Theodore retorts, there is no way to escape anyway. Perhaps not for a normal person. Arnold asserts that he lost the moment he captured her. Then we hear footsteps, the door opens, and we see a beautiful leg. Rish finally appears. Arnold asks if she escaped through the window or punched a hole in the wall. But she says she walked out the door like a normal person. Theodore wonders if someone betrayed him. Out of consideration, Rish decides to give him some advice on keeping a prisoner. She mentions inhumane options, like keeping the prisoner naked so they can't hide anything and breaking their arms and legs so they can't escape. This startles Theodore. Arnold asks why she's giving advice to the enemy and covers her with his coat. Theodore sees the scar on his neck, wondering what that was. In his thoughts, he admits he's not good enough, as he always suspected. Rish confronts him, asking about his goal in all this. He replies that it's for the throne, of course, but Rish deduces that he actually wants to give up his place in the line of succession, but in a more extreme way. Theodore continues to deny it over and over, but Rish uses all her arguments collected from her observations. Theodore is indeed a good person, and he has been neglecting his altruistic duties so he can be seen as a villain and could praise Arnold. He'd rather have Arnold kill him than not be accepted by him. Arnold interrupts them, saying that's enough, he has no proof of any of that, so what his brother does is not his concern. This hits Theodore like a stake, and he runs off. Rish asks why he wants to distance himself so much from his brother. He replies that what Theodore does doesn't concern him. Rish doesn't believe that either. After all, he told her not to get involved with Theodore, which means he does care. Rish remembers when he said she didn't need determination to be his beloved. She thought about it, and concluded that Arnold wants to throw away his entire future. And that's what Theodore is afraid of. Arnold starts acting strangely, saying how cute Rish is. She can't understand his motivations, so she's confused. He says again, "Stay away from Theodore, he never should have gotten involved with someone like me." Rish realizes that Arnold does care about Theodore, or he would never have said that. She tells him to think about a future where he could lose him instead of sacrificing himself. Rish tries to go after Theodore. She's exhausted, she hasn't slept in a long time. Then we see an old memory of Theodore's, where he was taking care of the wounded during a war. When they were attacked in their tent, Theodore stood in front of the wounded soldiers, sacrificing his life for theirs. But before that, Arnold saves him. He advises him not to risk his life, but this action is a source of pride, and he congratulates him. Rish appears. Theodore finally speaks as himself. He knows that Arnold never displays his own achievements, but his infamy burns like straw in other countries. Arnold himself spreads bad rumors about him. Theodore knows because he always watches him and is afraid he'll disappear at any moment. Theodore comes to the conclusion that if Arnold wants to leave the Empire with him and disappear, then he just needs to disappear first. Rish knows that Arnold has plans against himself, but intends to stop him using her strength and the strength of other people, including Theodore. Theodore is surprised and grateful for this, but he wants to choose how to do it himself, and thinks he should have done it a long time ago. So, he jumps off the edge of the building. Rish tries to run to save him, but her exhaustion consumes her. Arnold appears like lightning there, and saves his brother. He asks what the hell he was thinking. Theodore says it's the only way he can be useful to him. Arnold admits he never acted like an older brother. What idiot would risk their life for a brother like that? Rish says that despite everything, Theodore's willingness to help his brother is admirable. Arnold returns to speak as before, telling him not to risk his life like that. His brother sees that he remembers and tears up. Rish is happy to see that the brothers have reconciled and falls asleep. The next day, Rish finally wakes up and sees Arnold waiting for her. He hands her a letter from Theodore, apologizing. He returned to helping the poor locals of the kingdom, and says that his allies are at her disposal. After that, Arnold tells her to think of something she wants. He broke the rule of touching her again. Rish remembers the kiss and blushes, but says she doesn't want anything. Arnold thanks her for taking care of his brother. Later, Riche visits Theodore and thanks him for not punishing Camille and Elsie. He and his brother Arnold now handle official matters together. At this point, Riche makes a request to him, but it remains hidden from us. Later, Riche makes some preparations, gathers her courage, and finally asks Arnold to move to the countryside with her. He thought she wanted to live alone there, but Riche denies it, saying the opposite. Thanks to her, his mood has improved, and he happily accepts. Oliver thanks her for this. Afterwards, Arnold sees his room prepared, and he is amazed at the huge change in the house. It had been abandoned for years, and Riche managed to fix everything perfectly in a few weeks with the help of her maids trained by herself. Arnold mentions that besides learning very well, they will take pride in a job well done, which will motivate them even more. Riche is speechless, and Arnold asks if that's the face she makes when she receives compliments from him. It may not seem like it, but they are sincere. Riche says that even if it were a lie, his compliments make her very happy. Riche comments that the room is bright and fresh. Her room is right next door, which makes it easy for Arnold to know about her recklessness, but Riche says she plans to just be lazy, so she won't do anything reckless, maybe a few. Arnold says she can do whatever she wants as long as it's not reckless like the other day. Riche reminds him that they agreed to train, and she is excited about it. Riche is sure that her beloved's skill is the most beautiful and strong in the world, but Arnold says there can be no beauty in something used to take lives. After a while, the two go to the training field. They both have one arm tied behind their backs. Arnold is more limited, wearing an eye patch and something that restricts the movement of his left leg. Riche analyzes the situation well and deduces that this serves to mimic accidents on the battlefield, like losing a limb. Riche proposes a bet for the fight. If she wins, he has to answer one of her questions. If she loses, she will grant any wish of his. Riche prepares and makes a frontal attack. Her balance is poor because of her tied arm. She sees she needs to compensate for that. Arnold is amazing and manages to give her tips on how she should behave in the fight, even in the middle of combat. Riche's analysis is very good, and in an instant, she already manages to improve. Riche predicts that Arnold will make the same attack that took her life in the other timeline, and so this time, she manages to prevent it. Still, even knowing what would happen, her body can barely keep up. Arnold realizes that despite Riche saying his technique is the best, he deduces that she knows someone stronger than him. Indeed, her future version is much stronger, cruel, and immensely formidable. Anticipating Arnold's movements, Riche advances, and narrowly misses hitting him. However, he didn't intend to move at all, but was forced to. As his prize, Arnold asks Riche to be free after the next day. They will visit the city. So he asks her to get up, but Riche is embarrassed. Her limbs are shaking so much from the training that she can't stand. Arnold thinks for a moment and sees that if he touches her with gloves, he won't have a problem with that rule. Arnold picks her up, and Riche is so embarrassed that she screams. Arnold is curious about the questions Riche would ask if she won, so he asks her to ask them even though she lost. He sees that Arnold enjoys seeing her reactions. She only asks for his birthday and things he likes. Later, Oliver makes preparations for Arnold's new room. Riche finds out that her beloved couldn't sleep last night because of his duties, and he's still working. So, Riche goes to him, asking him to rest. Arnold quickly realizes that Oliver spilled the beans. Still, even wanting to, Arnold can't. During the day, several people circulate through the palace, and this prevents his sleep. Riche then promises to take care of his rest. The two then go to the new room, and Riche insists on staying by his side so he won't be distracted by other presences. He sees that it doesn't seem to be working, so he decides to lie down next to him. Riche with courage? She begins to lightly touch Arnold, mimicking the heartbeat, a technique to calm the mind. She mentions that if you do this with a child, they fall asleep quickly. Arnold says she must be the only person who would treat him like a child. Time passes, Rish ends up getting distracted by Arnold's scar. He says she can touch it if she wants. She runs her fingers over it, but ends up going too high. Arnold mentions that if he knew they were going to do this, he would have brought gloves so he could return the favor. She becomes embarrassed and says that even with gloves, it wouldn't be okay. He says it was just a joke. Rish sees that she's not being very fair, so she loosens her clothes and shows her neck, letting Arnold touch her as revenge. So he throws a pillow in her face. Then, he says that as revenge, he will be content with her expression. She finds her strange, not hesitating to lie down with him, but feeling embarrassed as their eyes meet up close. She hoped to cast a spell on him with her presence, making him calmer. Arnold agrees and tells her to stay until he falls asleep. Her presence is much better than an empty room. She ends up falling asleep too, and when she wakes up, she thinks she's in her room, asking what Arnold is doing there, but then remembers what happened. Oliver knocks on the door looking for the prince. Arnold throws the sheet over Rish and tells her to be quiet. He brings reports, and he is happy to see that Rish managed to convince him. Later, Rish finally returns to her quarters. There, something she ordered from the merchants of Aria arrived. She pretends to be a man again and starts training as a knight. In the midst of her first training, Rish, now using the name Lucius to blend in among the men, draws her superior's attention for lagging behind the others. Later, we see that the princess's request to Theodore was to be included in the knight candidate's training as a man. The young man finds it strange and questions why his sister-in-law doesn't hire a private tutor instead of orchestrating this whole arrangement. Rish believes that a private tutor would probably be kinder to her as a maiden, and she doesn't want special treatment or favoritism. She prefers to blend in with the men for truly rigorous training. Initially, the prince rejects getting involved in this confusion, but soon remembers that it would be a great opportunity to shock his brother by including his wife in the knight selection, pretending to be a man. Rish doesn't wish to shock the prince, but Theodore insists. He is eager to see his brother's surprised face. And indeed, this would be another thing that Arnold would be surprised by, but he must already expect surprises from Rish. Back to the present moment, Rish is resting, panting, surprised that this is just basic training in Gokhain. One of her fellow trainees appears there. His name is Fritz, and he keeps Rish company. Starting a conversation, he mentions that he comes from a city called Sutina, a port region to the north, where Koyal's ship docked. Fritz would have spent the rest of his life there if it weren't for his admiration for Prince Arnold Hyan, a war hero who inspired him to become a knight and move to this kingdom. At that moment, a Gokhain count named Lavine draws the young man's attention for not addressing the prince as Your Highness, and immediately Fritz apologizes for the informal treatment. This noble is known for being the guardian of the north and very loyal to the imperial family. Despite Lavine's good reputation, Rish remembers that in 3 years, the future Emperor Arnold will execute the count for a heinous crime. While having this memory, she realizes that the count is staring at her and may have noticed that Rish is disguised as a man. Lavine then asks if Rish likes chicken, and with a deeper voice, the princess affirms. Therefore, the count instructs the supposed Lucius to eat more meat from now on because he has less muscle than the average trained men. Furthermore, he informs that he will join the training instructors starting tomorrow. At that moment, a subordinate announces that the meeting with the emperor is about to begin. After this, we see that Rish goes to a cabin, removes her disguise, and returns to the imperial mansion, entering through the window on a rope. Descending the stairs, she encounters her fiancé Arnold, who whispers to the princess that she should go to the back gate on the west side tomorrow at 2 p.m., making sure no one sees her. Rish asks if she needs to dye her hair for the disguise, but Arnold refuses, so she decides to wear typical city clothes to go unnoticed. Later, Elsie asks about what the two are talking about, and Rish explains that she will meet the prince in the western part of the city, probably to discuss some official matters, but she's not sure. However, for this, she needs to be dressed as discreetly as possible, so Elsie takes responsibility for making Rish impeccable for this meeting. Finally, the moment arrives, and at the agreed place, Arnold asks her to remove the hood because no one in the area knows her face, revealing her attire. She argues that perhaps dressing too simply would attract even more attention than a linen dress, but Arnold sees no problem with the clothes and even anticipated it. He states that he intends to praise the work of the princess's maid. They then arrive at Gokhain's famous fair, and Riche is enchanted by the coquito grapes and the rare saluf eggs. Observing her fiancé, she notices that he doesn't seem very pleased with her relaxed posture, so she changes her speech to show seriousness. She analyzes that fairs are an excellent market gauge, reflecting the region's public order. The princess was trying to be more diplomatic in this meeting with the future emperor, imagining that he was evaluating her analytical ability, but he simply takes out a pocket watch and asks if she would like to explore the fair. Riche is very pleased with this and continues exploring. She buys a typical fruit for herself and Arnold, who finds the object disturbing, but Riche argues that it is a very nutritious food. Although hesitant to put this strange thing in his mouth, Arnold bites the fruit and says it tastes healthy, and Riche finds it a typical response from someone who didn't like it and doesn't want to admit it. Shortly after, Arnold says not to stay in one place for too long so that Oliver's subordinates don't find them. Speaking of him, the servant has just found out that the prince is missing. Riche asks if Arnold doesn't have any official commitments today, and he replies that the owner of the place they are going to doesn't go to the palace, so he needs to go there. Inside, an elderly couple bows and thanks for being hired by the prince, but Arnold asks them to lift their heads, without ceremony. Soon, the woman introduces herself as Mihaela, owner of this humble jewelry store. Jokingly, Mihaela shows 3 stones to Riche and asks which one is fake. The princess deeply observes the stones but admits she has no idea. Finding the maiden's honest and straightforward response interesting. But instead of giving up, Riche asks for evaluation tools to be able to accurately assess the objects. Analyzing with the appropriate tools, Riche observes that all the stones had a high degree of transparency and very well-cut facets. However, she returns the jewels to the woman, stating that all are imitations. With that, Mihaela admits to underestimating the lady and emphasizes that no one has ever asked for the tools before. Despite this, Riche asserts that the stones are very beautiful and surely anyone who bought them would cherish them. Faced with the princess's humility, Mihaela admires the young woman even more, saying that she sells her products carefully to selected clients and would like to show her exclusive products to Riche. Arnold asks the jewelry store owner to give his fiancée whatever she wants, and Riche is confused, thinking she was there to fulfill Arnold's wish. In fact, she was, but the prince's wish is to give a ring to his beloved, which will be delivered during the wedding ceremony. So, Mihaela will make the preparations while Riche questions the reason behind all this, saying that rings are not necessary in Gokhain. Therefore, she asks Arnold how their training led to this, and he replies that he decided not to mention the ring because if he did, Riche probably wouldn't accept the gift due to its price. However, he asked her not to worry about it because, in this way, the prince's fortune, which is more than he could spend, would return to the city's businesses and, consequently, to his people, making the economy circular. And as it involves an important matter for the princess, she promises to make her choice wisely and sincerely. Faced with many first-class options, Riche wonders if a diamond would be better considering the occasion as a wedding, or if an emerald would enhance her eyes. Seeing the maiden's hesitation, Mihaela comments that wearing her favorite jewel with pride fills women with courage, as if it were a lucky charm, so it is important to be chosen very carefully. The lady then asks Riche's favorite color, and the maiden looks into the prince's eyes, seeing them as crystalline ice formed in the sea of the coldest country. She even gets lost in his gaze for a while and asks if there would be any jewelry the color of Arnold's eyes. Realizing that this observation may have sounded strange, the noblewoman quickly tries to justify herself, saying that she simply finds his eye color beautiful. Mihaela enjoys the lady's behavior, finding it very romantic, and promises to find a jewel in the desired color. Riche tries to explain herself again to the owner, but as it doesn't work, she asks Arnold to forget what she said. Riche returns to the castle and observes the beautiful sunset of Gokhain while Arnold asks why she chose the left ring finger to measure the ring. The princess replies that it is a tradition where she comes from, and when asking the fiancé why he decided to give her this ring, he says that there is no specific reason behind it. However, as the princess does a lot of manual work, it may be rewarding to look at her hand and see a beautiful gift from the prince on one of her fingers. Therefore, the girl promises that Arnold will be the first to see her hand with the ring. Changing the subject, Riche mentions the arrival of Count Lavine, and Arnold explains that he is the most well-prepared person to instruct knight candidates. On the other hand, the princess believes that Arnold would not bring such an important nobleman just to teach some rookies how to handle a sword, so she presumes that the prince is waiting for someone, as he kept checking the time on his pocket watch all the time before arriving at the castle. So, the prince confesses that he received a message from another country where the sender said he could not attend the wedding, so he decided to anticipate the celebration on his own. Arnold tried to warn that this was not necessary, but another letter from the same sender warned that he wanted to advance this meeting as much as possible, so he would go to Gokhain without waiting for the prince's response. While eating fruits freshly arrived from Koyals at the fair, Rish presumes that the owner of the letter was on the same export ship. In turn, Arnold confirms the suspicion based on what he heard from his patrol. Rish remembers a memory from one of her lives where she met Prince Kyle, and she is sure that it is him who is about to arrive. Later, Arnold receives Prince Kyle Morgan Cleverly, the Prince of Koyals, in his palace, who, on behalf of his father, the king, congratulates Arnold on his wedding, while Arnold thanks for the presents. Rish analyzes that these two kingdoms have a great difference. Koyals produces gems, gold, and silver, making it a rich nation. However, for much of the year, they are isolated by snow, and to get food and basic goods, they depend on trade with neighboring countries. Furthermore, in 5 years, they would be destroyed by the war caused by the future emperor of Gokhain, Arnold. Meanwhile, the prince introduces his wife, Rish, to Kyle. He already expected the prince of Gokhain's bride to be beautiful, but he didn't imagine she could be so incredibly magnificent. During all the compliments Kyle was making, Rish is impressed by the paleness of his skin. Kyle was almost blue. When she looks at her future husband's face, she notices the expression of anger he was showing at that moment. Arnold feels jealous. After the meeting, Arnold talks about how Prince Kyle didn't reveal his true intentions upon arriving in this kingdom, and Rish asks what he thinks it is, as he practically killed Kyle with his gaze. So Arnold reveals that he learned that Kyle brought several scholars from Koyals, and this information triggers a memory in Rish of when she treated the prince in the freezing cold of the extreme north in her reincarnation as a doctor. Meanwhile, Arnold asks if Rish wants to be present at the next meetings with a nobleman from the neighboring country, and she reveals that she has a medicine that could help with the fragile health of the Prince of Koyals, if the scholars accept the suggestion. It won't be necessary to drug Kyle's food. So the princess says it's just a joke, but Arnold isn't so sure coming from her. He says that tomorrow there will be a welcome banquet for Kyle, and Arnold wishes to leave the prince face to face with Count Lawvine to try to keep Kyle under control in case he's plotting something. Rish is surprised and fears it. Arnold asks what it was, but she pretends it's nothing. If Count Lawvine shows up at the banquet, he will discover that Lucius is actually Arnold's bride, Rish. At dusk while tending to her garden, Rish couldn't stop thinking about ways to maintain her disguise in front of Count Lawvine. She also worried about ensuring that Prince Kyle took the medicine because without proper treatment, his illness would soon confine him to bed. Lost in her thoughts, Rish noticed a man approaching, praising the maiden's garden. Assuming that only someone of his profession could maintain such a high-quality herb garden, Rish then looked at the man's face and recognized him as Professor Michael, her former mentor in a past life. Remembering the moments when they explored the world together, discovering all the substances existing on the planet, the two watched the sunrise, and Michael asked if it illuminated her research. Rish confirmed that it helped a lot, so she quickly apologized for asking the professor to come from so far away. In response, Michael said it was nothing. After all, Rish was his disciple, and he was eager to share everything he could with her. He assured that he would always be willing to help with whatever she needed, and if she wanted to learn on her own, he wouldn't stand in her way. During this conversation, Rish reminisced about the wonderful time when she was Michael's student in her third life. Returning to the moment of the tutor's arrival, the princess's guards asked him to identify himself. He introduced himself as Michael Haven, who had come with the delegation from Koyals. The guards offered to accompany him if he was lost, but Michael thanked them, saying he was only interested in the woman behind them. The guards were offended by his way of addressing the future Empress of Gokhain, but Rish approached to calm them down, taking charge of the situation. She introduced herself again to the man in her new life, asking if he was an academic. In response, Michael thought it was an appropriate way to define his occupation. Observing her nails, he supposed that the princess used a type of sap and dyes to produce them, but he was curious about the hardening method. Rish explained that she used leash grass and ginkgo nectar, adding labido leaves. Michael asked why she didn't use Kiri's leaves to avoid air bubbles, and Riche noticed that the man had thought of everything. He advised her to use stoma sap to further harden the enamel. He expressed surprise at the maiden's knowledge, asking if she would like to become his student instantly. The princess accepted, and so, while in Gokheim, he would offer his knowledge to the young lady, who was happy to become his disciple again. By the way, Michael wasn't sure what plants Riche was producing in her garden, but he wanted to know if she was interested in providing some kind of medicine for Prince Kyle, leaving everyone present surprised. Shortly after, Michael took the amazing woman he discovered to get to know Prince Kyle better. Kyle felt honored to see the princess twice in the same day and explained that she was the wife of His Highness, the heir to Gokheim. Michael was surprised by this and added that she became his student by chance. Kyle was stunned by this situation, so Michael mentioned that the herbal medicine she was producing could help a lot with the illness he had been suffering from. However, he confessed that the composition of the medicine was a bit beyond him, so Kyle would need to be aware that he would have to be part of an experiment. Riche was worried about Kyle's reaction to the way the professor communicated this, but the prince didn't hesitate to accept the condition, as his greatest desire was to rid himself of this illness that had been plaguing him for so long, and he would do anything to achieve it. Therefore, Riche proposed to finalize the medicine. She showed the medicine to the prince, but warned him that the taste was extremely repulsive. Michael assured the young man that he would have no trouble facing it, and Kyle himself reaffirmed that position. So, the professor quickly opened the lid and poured the formula into his mouth without mixing it with water beforehand, leaving Riche desperate to see the young nobleman struggling to swallow the substance. Michael was curious and asked what the taste was like, and Kyle explained that it was bitter and sour, mixed with a smell of stable horses, but that when swallowed, it became sweeter, like a type of mucus. Having to hear that, Riche said that the young man didn't need to go into so much detail, so she asked a soldier for water. After that, Michael showed his research records, and Riche was very excited about it, since he had shown them to Prince Kyle, but the sovereign didn't understand anything written in the records, as if it were another language. So Michael was happy to meet someone who would understand the knowledge he wanted to convey. This reaction from the girl made the tutor realize how special that woman was, so he asked if she really didn't like the medicine she gave to Kyle. At that moment, Riche remembered her past life when Michael praised her talent, but pointed out that her great flaw was using her skills only to make others happy because no one should be able to determine another's happiness, since even suffering has its reason. For example, poison has the duty to fulfill that role. On the other hand, Riche questioned whether poison can really only bring suffering and commented that thinking that someone is born only to bring misfortune doesn't really match her teacher. Anyway, Michael didn't find anyone to experiment with the medicine they prepared, so until now no one has tested that formula to see if it works. Next, Arnold entered the room calling Riche to leave, and the princess explained that the man with her was Michael Haven, an academic from Koyals who ended up becoming her teacher and from whom she learned many things while he was there. Upon hearing this, Michael got up and introduced himself, and Arnold said that if he needed anything during this exchange of knowledge with the princess, he just had to ask. As she left with the prince, he asked his future wife if she always had the habit of staying up late, and she explained that she didn't notice the hours when she was very focused on work, but anyway, she had slept in the afternoon, so she was quite relaxed. Then the prince gave his future wife a valuable pocket watch. Some didn't believe in watches, as they were a novelty. Happy with the gift, Riche realized that the crown prince was quite open to new technologies, contrary to what she thought, and at that moment she remembers once again a moment with Michael where he regretted believing that no one would test that medicine the way he wanted. As she returns to reality, Arnold asks why she has that silly expression, but Riche deflects and comments that, coincidentally, her former herbal mentor in Renhua also found that item useful. Arnold asks how this old mentor compares to her current teacher, and Riche observes that Michael is not an herbalist, although he knows some medicinal herbs that he uses in research. In the end, his job is to study all substances to create new ones, like an alchemist. On the day of the party, Riche prepares to act as naturally as possible so that Lavine doesn't discover her disguise. As she dressed, she received a letter from Madame Mihaela, the owner of the store where her fiancé bought a ring for Riche. In the letter, Mihaela informs that she managed to hire a craftsman from Koyals who significantly accelerated the production of the ring, and upon seeing the design of the project, the princess is delighted. During the party, Riche notices the boredom on her fiancé's face, and at that moment Kyle arrives at the event, feeling unworthy of such a ceremony. Once again, he praises the indescribable beauty of the Princess of Gokheim, who asks how he is feeling today after taking the medicine. Kyle feels much better after medicating himself and is grateful to the princess, who soon says goodbye to talk to the other maidens. After a while, Rish fulfilled her basic duty of greeting everyone at the party, so she could focus on something she hadn't experienced in a long time. She focuses like in meditation and turns the entire room black and white, with only Cone Lawvine keeping his colors in a corner of the party. With the success of her attempt, she is surprised that her experience in the fifth life is useful at this moment. From then on, all she has to do is stay focused and not let anyone realize that she is avoiding Lawvine. At a certain point in the party, she meets Lord Wileman, Mihaela's son, and he comments that Rish visited his mother's shop. People around, hearing the conversation, are impressed, as Mihaela has even refused the Empress as a customer. Later, Rish reveals that the delivery will be well ahead of schedule because of a craftsman, and she wants to know to what extent this professional makes a difference in making a ring. Wileman explains that Koyal's craftsmen are exceptional, able to work on detailed objects of various types, and that's why Rish understands why they are known for jewelry and gemstones. As Rish tries to move away from the Count, Kyle takes action and asks for military support from the future Emperor of Gokheim because, as he knows well, Koyal's military power is almost non-existent, as it is a kingdom that depends on the supply of precious stones and metals. Kyle fears that enemies will destroy Koyals and then take Gokheim, as they have already threatened to do, and that is why he wishes for an alliance between the two peoples to protect themselves from a potential attack. For his part, Arnold wonders when Prince Kyle will reveal his plans and finally find out what he came to do so far, even though he is sick. He says that the value of a royal family is questionable when it does not recognize the importance of peace and wants to know what his kingdom gains from it in return for the alliance. Koyals is willing to prioritize Gokheim in the trade of precious stones, even if his kingdom does not profit from it. Watching the conversation, Rish regrets that Kyle is so direct up to this point and does not know how to negotiate without revealing all the points. Arnold doesn't understand the reason for this condition because, in Kyle's place, he would clearly put a validity clause in this contract to not get stuck in unprofitable business forever and compromise the financial health of an entire kingdom. Therefore, Arnold believes that Koyal's mineral resources are almost exhausted for the prince to make such a proposal. Finally, Kyle admits that his life will not last much longer and a new heir is about to be born, so he wants to do everything he can to ensure the future of Koyals. So he appeals to Kyle's reputation for getting close to his people and tries to convince him to do the same with his country's population. However, Arnold turns his back and walks away. Kyle begs for the host's help, so Arnold stops and mentions that Kyle has a misconception. After all, instead of allying with a vulnerable country, it would be much more convenient to invade it and take possession of it. Faced with the coldness of this statement, Kyle seems to lose all hope and cannot react, while Rish relates her fiancé's words to the future that the world expects, when in 5 years Arnold will wage a bloody war against everyone and everything, and Koyals will also be a kingdom on the other side of the trench. However, she did not imagine that Kyle would ask for an alliance with Gokheim, so she realizes that this fact is an unexpected twist that can change the fate of the peoples who inhabit this world. Remembering her journey to the extreme north, she recalls the Prince of Koyals promising to protect his people, as it is his life's duty, even though they fight daily to not lose it. Considering the reality of the situation, it is very likely that Koyals will become a vassal of Gokheim in the hope of obtaining military protection, thus avoiding complete destruction. However, such an agreement would make Arnold Hine the true owner of these lands, and Rish wishes that this does not happen because the accumulation of power from Gokheim could become the greatest incentive for a total war in the future. Therefore, Rish needs to find a way to make this alliance less unequal. After Kyle's appeal was rejected by Arnold, he returns to his quarters in the palace, feeling depressed and hopeless. Michael asks if everything is all right, and Kyle responds that Arnold is more inclined to take his kingdom than to join forces with them. Michael smiles at this situation. Outside, he lights a cigarette while pondering about Arnold and finally says he has found someone who knows what poison is and can test it. Later, Rish disguised as Lucius trains in swordsmanship while thinking about Arnold and the kingdom. If negotiations with the Prince of Gokheim fail, Koyals may be invaded. At that moment, Count Lavine appears, praising Rish's efforts but noting hesitancy in her strikes. The princess admits to having negative thoughts, and she asks the count if everyone there will go to battle if there is a war. He confirms. Rish is afraid of such a future, and Lavine says it's normal. His son lost his life in the last war, and despite being proud of his bravery, he would prefer him to be alive. All they can do to overcome this fear is not to deny their desires and feelings, using them to move forward. Rish thanks him for the advice and thinks that she really doesn't want to die in a war or for Koyals to fall, but her greatest wish is certainly for Arnold to be true to himself and stop acting falsely like a villain. Later, a special guest will observe the recruits, and to Rish's surprise, it's Arnold himself. He doesn't know about Rish's disguise but can tell just by looking at her. He decides to let his beloved continue with the act and remains silent. He then says he wants to see the recruits in action. Rish is relieved that he will let this pass, however. After the training, Arnold confronts her in an alley away from the others and asks what she wants exactly with this. Rish continues the act and says it's an honor to have His Highness speaking to a mere knight candidate. Arnold plays along with Rish and starts pretending she is indeed a recruit, saying there's no problem in touching her, and he squeezes her cheeks. Rish remembers their kiss and starts blushing as Arnold tells her to fight back. Rish continues the act and asks Arnold to stop, as if anyone sees them in this situation, it could cause a problem since the prince has a fiancée. The prince confirms he indeed does, however, this behavior is quite disrespectful for a mere recruit. Rish, still acting, apologizes, and Arnold says he doesn't exactly know what the apologies are for and asks her to say what she did in her own words. Rish then finally gives up and apologizes for not disclosing that she would be participating in the knight candidate training. Arnold then lets her go and asks why she's doing this, and Rish replies that she wanted to undergo this training that was designed by her prince. Arnold eventually relents and allows his fiancée to continue with this, but with some conditions. She must rest a lot and cannot let her gender be discovered. The princess is happy and thanks her beloved. Arnold asks if she's really enjoying the training so much, and Rish affirms yes, praising her prince's training, saying it's magnificent. Arnold says capable people are the treasure of the empire. Rish thinks these capable people can become soldiers in the future war. The princess mentions she overheard Arnold's conversation with Kyle, and Arnold is not surprised to hear that. She will probably try to convince him to ally with Koyals, but there's no value in a kingdom that has lost all its power. The true question now is how to deliver the final blow to this nation. Rish says Arnold sometimes acts like a liar. Arnold says she can think whatever she wants of him but asks her not to forget that a war for the empire of Koyals is not a cruel choice, it's just a political tool. Later, Rish reflects in her room about her past lives. She met Prince Kyle for the first time in her first life as a merchant, and even though Kyle was nobility, he treated everyone with great respect. And he continued to do so every time Rish encountered him. That's just how Kyle is, and she really wants to save him from his fate. Some time later, Rish presents the new pill medicine to Kyle and talks about his conversation with Arnold. This is embarrassing for Kyle. The right thing to do would be to leave the city after that, but he can't give up. Rish talks about Arnold's cruelty in battles. He even decapitated monarchs of enemy nations. Kyle researched the Prince of Gokhain very well, and despite all this, it's evident that his internal policies consider his people greatly. He believes Arnold's cruel actions were to avoid future problems, a form of compassion. Even though Arnold is a total barbarian, Kyle must fulfill his duty. Rish expresses hope and invites Kyle to form an alliance with her. Together they must convince Arnold. Later, Rish returns Michael's book, thanking him and saying how wonderful it was to read. She is very excited to learn new things, whatever they may be. Michael admires that and says she's not fit to be an empress, inviting her to join him. He can teach her everything he knows. Rish is grateful but refuses. Her duty is to stay there and marry Arnold. Michael also expresses interest in him. The Highness refused Kyle's request, and the reason for that was exactly the kind of thing Michael loves. He feels that Arnold would use his new compound very effectively, black powder. Rish talks about how Arnold is also kind, but Michael doesn't care and interrupts her, asking if she can arrange a meeting between him and the prince right away, even if he's busy. He would understand due to his kindness. Shyly, Rish certainly doesn't want this meeting to happen, and Michael knows it. He realizes and says she didn't ask what black powder was. In her third life, Michael explained everything about this new compound to her, going back to one of her memories, Michael states he wants to test his compound even if lives are lost in the process. Philosophizing about what is right and wrong, he asks Rish if the destruction of the world would really be a mistake. Is it really so wrong to want to see how one's creations will change the world? Rish can't say anything. Michael says goodbye and hopes Rish will find a path she believes to be right. On her way to her quarters, Rish reflects on wanting the alliance between Gokhain and Koyals, but Michael will do everything to find Arnold and present his compound, which will provoke the beginning of a war. At that moment, Theodore appears, grabbing Rish's arm and whispering close to her, "I heard that Arnold saw you dressed as a man." She apologizes, but the fact that she's deceiving Arnold bothers him, so it's better now. Besides, he found out about it quickly. His servants are exceptional, no matter what Arnold does or where he is. Theodore soon finds out, and the same goes for Rish. Then, Rish has an idea and asks for her brother-in-law's help to use his exceptional servants for a while. Theodore asks if it's to help Arnold. Rish denies and says it's actually an act of rebellion against him. Theodore is surprised and likes the idea. Outside, Michael has an old and painful memory. At his mother's funeral, his father blamed him relentlessly for being the reason for her death, repeating that Michael was born to bring them misfortune. Throughout his life, he immersed himself in knowledge. The field of learning always accepted him, and he learned things as naturally as breathing and drinking water. His experiments were always. When he managed to enter a laboratory, his world expanded, and his efforts were always rewarded. He was a brilliant prodigy. However, his creations were fearsome. His teachers wondered how someone his age could think of such deadly things. Some time later, a war began, and everything burned. His teachers and even his father died. He accidentally created it, a compound capable of killing everything, black powder. It seems like what his father said was true. He was born to bring misfortune to people. On the other side, we see Rish descending a staircase, thinking about failing to change Michael's mind in her other life. At that moment, the two meet there, and Michael asks about his audience with the prince. Rish asks if he really wants to present the black powder to Arnold. Michael says that everything that is born must fulfill its purpose, just like poison. If a person is born to disturb the world's order, so it must be. He said the same thing in Rish's past life. He apologizes to his pupil for seeming like a villain, but that's the truth, even if people die. Michael is certain that this is his purpose in life, and then he leaves in the late afternoon sun, bidding good night to his student. Reflecting on Michael and his distorted ambition before falling asleep, Rish notices something strange outside. There are several fireflies beautifully illuminating her balcony and the palace garden. She admires the tiny creatures when Arnold emerges from his room. They greet each other, and Arnold is intrigued by the large number of insects, suggesting exterminating them if Rish wishes. She immediately refuses, stating that all animals, including humans, are part of a larger cycle. Besides, they are beautiful. Arnold watches her with curiosity and agrees. Rish feels strange. Arnold is the source of all her worries, yet he also brings her happiness in so many ways. Rish sees the fireflies gathering near the prince, thinking it's the perfect excuse to bring her closer. He calls her over, and Rish agrees, saying it doesn't seem far. To everyone's surprise, including Arnold's, Rish simply jumps from one side to the other. The prince immediately drops the sword he was holding and rushes to catch his princess. Rish is crazy. Arnold takes his beloved, and they embrace as she arrives there. Rish blushes instantly, apologizing if she scared the prince, but he knows she can jump great distances without any problem. In fact, he knows. He's seen her jump from the balcony of a palace without any issue. Even knowing this, he moved on reflex. Rish blushes even more. She sees her beloved's sword and decides to pick it up to return it, thanking him. Arnold mentions that she could simply go around the corridor and enter through the door. She's genuinely surprised to see that this is true. She took the shortest path just like that time in the palace. Changing the subject, Rish asks why he's carrying his sword. Arnold had thought the firefly lights were torches. Upon closer observation, Rish sees that they do indeed resemble torches from a battlefield. The memories of war are vivid in Arnold. They admire the view for a while. The princess gets lost for a moment among the lights wandering around and meets Arnold's blue eyes, saying that they are indeed beautiful. The prince says he has the same eyes as his father, the emperor. This proves that he has his blood. When he was younger, he wanted to gouge out his own eyes. These eyes should not be gazed upon in this way. There is great and deep hostility between Prince Arnold and his father, the Emperor. He talks about how Riche admired the view of Gokheim when she first saw it. He doesn't feel the same. The fireflies seem like torches from war. The view of the city fills him with bitterness and anger. Perhaps it's because of the eyes he inherited from his father, or perhaps because of his own essence. In the end, it doesn't matter. The truth is, he only feels disgust. Riche says that from afar, these lights may seem like a war fire or simply fireflies. What one sees doesn't depend on inherited blood but on the experiences lived by the person. In this case, he just needs to learn about the beauty of that nation and the wonders of those who inhabit it. Arnold sighs, saying he doesn't need those things. It's enough that he's able to achieve his goals. Arnold has even taken the lives of loved ones with his own hands. Even if Riche becomes an obstacle, he will dispose of her. Regarding Kyle's kingdom, Arnold doesn't know what Riche might be thinking, but he asks not to be forced to get rid of her too. Riche shows no fear. On the contrary, she stands firm as a warrior and says she can't do that. Even as his wife, she will continue to act according to her goals, even if it means being discarded by him. But even if that happens, she will just come back there. Even if Arnold sets her aside and breaks the marriage, she will come back and ask to be hired as a maid in return. If that doesn't work, she'll disguise herself as a man and become a knight. If that doesn't work, she'll come as an herbalist. Either way, she will acquire any skill that can bring her back to the palace just to see him over and over again. So, she asks the prince not to worry. She won't stand idly by and let him get rid of her. Arnold is speechless with astonishment. With that said, Riche takes her beloved's hands to his face, saying that those eyes are Prince Arnold's eyes. Even if he hates them, she will keep reminding him that they are the most beautiful eyes in the world. Arnold is at a loss for words. Not knowing what to say, he just says it's late, so she'd better go to bed. Riche returns to her room, pensive about Arnold's words about his own eyes. The next day, Michael wanders through the city of Gokheim while being followed by someone mysterious. In the palace, Riche joins Theodore, and they discuss some things about their secret plans. Later, she meets with Kyle, and the Prince of Koyals shows the materials she asked for. Riche is impressed with the skill of the work. Even the trade sponsored by her has difficulty obtaining such materials. They both have an alliance, and Kyle will do everything in his power to help her. He also mentions that he managed to get a new audience with Prince Arnold, but wonders if it will be enough to convince him. Riche isn't sure, but he will certainly listen to the proposal. She knows him well. At nightfall, Riche works on something mysterious with the materials Kyle gave her. The next day, Michael wanders through the city again while being followed, but this time he notices and takes measures, knocking out the spy with a gas fluid. Sometime later, Kyle meets with Arnold for an audience. The Prince of Gokheim makes it clear that he doesn't intend to have the same conversation again. Arnold imagines that Kyle brought something of value. Riche confirms and thinks that this is a negotiation and a battle at the same time. She can't let herself be intimidated. Arnold asks her to sit and start the audience. But before that, Riche asks if he sees anything different about her. Earrings, bracelets, and a necklace. He has never seen any of them. They are all jewelry from Koyals. This kingdom is isolated for half of the year due to snow, and because of that, they were able to improve their craftsmanship skills, achieving superior results to all other kingdoms. Riche shows the watch Arnold gave her, asking if he recognizes it. He affirms that he does, but a few seconds later, he notices something strange. In fact, it wasn't his watch, but a replica made by a craftsman from Koyals, a perfect replica. Now that it has been replicated, they know exactly how the watch's science works, being able to be mass-produced. This manufacturing technique could expand to various other areas and purposes. Carriages that move without horses, ships that can sail without wind, a not-so-distant future. Only Koyals knows the techniques that can turn this into reality. Riche has no doubt about Arnold's interest in these technologies. However, Arnold asks if that was all. Arnold recognizes that Koyal's skills are exceptional and something that the Kingdom of Gokheim doesn't have. And precisely because of that, Kyle's naivety is even more repulsive to Arnold. He says that it's not necessary to form an alliance to obtain technology from another country. Everything could be obtained through force. If he were to accept, what would he use this technology for? They didn't think about that? Kyle says he already thought Arnold wouldn't like it much, but Princess Riche believes that this technology has the power to create a wonderful future, and that's certainly something Prince Arnold would want. Kyle came to this country believing in Arnold, his iron leadership, and respect for enemy nations even in war. The truth is, Arnold is kind enough to negotiate with Kyle. Kyle admits that his folly was trying to rely on the army of Gokheim, but still, he doesn't think it's a mistake to want an alliance. If they join forces, Risha's dream of a better future will come true. At that moment, the discussion is interrupted by Oliver and Theodore. He apologizes for the interruption and winks at Rish twice, meaning there's an emergency. Rish quickly says she'll need to leave. On the way, Theodore explains that Michael has evaded everyone who was following him. They lost sight of him in one of the city's alleys. As Rish predicted, he was carrying a large suitcase. One of Theodore's spies appears there. They found Michael. Rish goes outside, where we see Michael surrounded by guards.
Yeah, Rish.
Meanwhile, Arnold apologizes to Kyle for the interruption and the urgency of his fiancée's departure, but in that, he calls Oliver, and immediately several soldiers enter the room, surrounding one side of the table. Kyle doesn't understand what's happening. We see an ancient memory of Rish where she asks why Michael cares so much about her. Michael believes that this is the only good thing he can do with his life. When the princess actually finds him, the soldiers ask her not to approach anymore. Michael promised to commit an act of violence at 6 p.m. Rish asks if by doing this he thinks he will draw Arnold's attention, and that's exactly it. Even knowing that it may be something that harms the people around, he doesn't care and is determined to take responsibility for it. Michael is convinced that his existence boils down to misfortune and even apologizes to his student. He asserts that his own words should not be taken so literally. Having Rish as a pupil was just a whim. At that moment, Theodore appears there, giving a positive sign to the princess, who is delighted with the news. Once she asked Michael if it was really impossible to make poison a good thing for people. Rish approaches Michael saying that she was his pupil for a short time, but despite that, she affirms that even poison can bring happiness to someone. Once Risha's former alchemy teacher told her that no matter how good the alchemist is, the results won't always be as expected. That's because Michael was unable to understand the variable that is Rish. Finally, the time comes, the bell rings announcing it's 6 p.m. At that moment, we see a bright trail going up to the sky and exploding into several bright lights. Rish had created the fireworks with Michael's black powder. Even though Michael can only see his creations as misfortune for others, that doesn't mean he's right. Maybe it just needs to be used differently. Everyone sees the glow in the sky, even Arnold and Kyle with the soldiers. Michael is incredulous. Is it really his black powder? How is this possible? Rish had been researching an easy way to differentiate one type of metal from another. At another time, someone showed her a northern lights from the northern lands, which reminded her that metals have a beautiful light when set on fire. She found a way to change the colors of the flames. Small lights hovering in the darkness can resemble war torches or the simple fireflies. There is not just one meaning for each material or phenomenon. In other words, nothing exists exclusively to bring misfortune to others. Michael asks if she planned all this just for him to understand. Why would she go so far? In Risha's memories, Michael used to say that to challenge someone else's research, you need to show a counterproof. Even understanding the use of metals and gunpowder, Michael never even considered doing something like this. Michael admits that Rish is indeed amazing, but the princess asserts that he is amazing. She is sure that other things he only saw as poison have other splendid uses. After all, he is the most brilliant alchemist in the world. Michael admires the beautiful view of the illuminated sky and understands that he indeed created the basis of something so beautiful. Rish sees that apparently everything happened safely. Before all this, Michael spread the gunpowder in mechanisms throughout the city to carry out his plan to draw Arnold's attention. Rish knew this and knew exactly where to look for these mechanisms because she saw the original documents in her past life. Thanks to this, she devised a plan to collect the gunpowder and fire it from cannons as fireworks, all coordinated with Theodore and his loyal servants. Back to the present, Count Lawvine appears there to confront Michael because he announced an attack. He will have to answer for the incident he caused, as they think he is responsible for the fireworks. Theodore tries to interfere saying that he can take care of Michael, but Lawvine can't let that happen. Michael declared that he would cause an incident in the lands of His Majesty, the Emperor. Even if it's an order from Prince Theodore, he can't hand him over. Arnold appears at that moment, asking what Lawvine is doing. He kneels before His Highness and clarifies what happened. He intends to capture Michael and interrogate him. Rish tries to interfere by explaining the real situation, but Arnold says it's unnecessary. What everyone saw there was just an academic from Koyals demonstrating a new technology. Lawvine wonders why an academic would do this on his lands. Arnold then finally declares that the Gokine Empire will make a technological alliance with Koyals. Rish grins from ear to ear. Arnold was finally convinced. Koyals will deliver manufacturing techniques and high precision and academic knowledge. The flame flower now was proof that Koyals masters technologies unknown to Gokine. Anticipating that Lawvine already knows, Rish approaches and apologizes for pretending to be someone else all this time. He just smiles and leaves. Maybe he already knew. Kyle thanks Michael for his help in the alliance, but that caught him totally off guard. He could have used less noisy methods. Michael says that in fact lives would have been lost, but Rish interrupts him before that and asks him to stay quiet and receive the scolding from Kyle. Michael apologizes to both of them. He was wrong, his theory was completely flawed and now he understands. Thus, he promises never to do something like that again. Arnold was talking with Oliver and his younger brother Theodore while Rish approached him with a smile. He states that he didn't do it out of kindness. It was more than clear that Michael was plotting something very unpleasant. But if he were publicly treated as a criminal, his father the Emperor would find out. So Arnold took advantage of Rish's plan. Rish will explain the situation to Michael later. Arnold says that if he decides to eliminate him in secret, he doesn't want to hear complaints. Then Rish says that, in fact, the pocket watch was invented by Michael. His knowledge would be of utmost importance. Arnold sighs. It seems that from the beginning Rish was sure she would convince her beloved. The people of the city also saw the fireworks. When they find out they are from Koyals, they will certainly support the alliance. She decides to call it fireworks and talks about her belief that all things have a good side. Perhaps Arnold still believes that his skills only serve for war. However, one day he certainly. Later, Rish and Kyle talk, and she gives him several remedies for his trip back to Koyals, but the taste remains terrible. Kyle admits that it's better to have a bad taste than to feel nauseous. Kyle thanks her from the bottom of his heart. Only thanks to her help did Arnold make an alliance with Koyals. Rish says that actually it was Koyals' technology and all their support for academic research. Sometime later, Rish talks with Michael. He says that Arnold is too lenient. But Rish asserts that him continuing to produce his best results for the alliance is a severe punishment that a normal person wouldn't be able to bear. Creating things that will make the world a more wonderful place. That's not his area, but he will do his best. Michael apologizes. He said before that being an empress wasn't for Rish, but she proved exactly the opposite. But he really thinks it's a pity that she won't stay as his student. Knowing more about Arnold is what she wants most at the moment. Michael says it's time for each of them to go their own way, and that they will meet again. So he bids farewell to his dear student. Moments later, Rish's ring is finally ready, and she's excited to show it to her beloved. She hasn't opened the box yet because she wants to see it with Arnold. The Prince of Gokine asserts that she doesn't need to show that she's wearing the ring. It hits her like a cold arrow that forms a knot in her throat. She asks why. Arnold just wanted her to allow him to give her a ring. He doesn't think he has the right to demand more than that. Rish allowed him to give her the ring, but she doesn't need to wear it if it doesn't meet her criteria. She should only wear what she likes without worrying about others' thoughts. She refuses. When the ring was measured, she chose the left ring finger. At her parents' wedding, the husband puts a ring on his wife's ring finger. Rish always wanted to be part of that tradition. She wants to wear this ring in the wedding ceremony and choose a dress that matches it. Even if he says she doesn't need to, she will wear this ring all the time. In fact, she was holding back from putting it on immediately. So, she asks him to please put it on her finger. Arnold says he's not wearing gloves. Reluctantly, Rish says it's okay, she just wants it now. Arnold sighs and agrees. He stands up and takes her arm, leading her to the sofa. He lets her sit there and kneels before his beloved while holding her hand and kisses her on the chosen finger. Rish blushes, her body shivers with love. Arnold asks if he can touch her, she confirms. The box opens, the ring is taken. Arnold tells her not to hold her breath. In fact, she forgot to breathe. He laughs and then takes the ring to his beloved's finger, leaving her breathless. He asks if she remembered how to breathe. Rish couldn't even look because she was so embarrassed. Her eyes shine with revelation. The blue of the ring is identical to her beloved prince's eyes. With this ring, she feels she can do anything. Arnold's mood got much better than he imagined. Riche asks him for one more thing, so that she can travel with him and see the beautiful things of this world, things he considers fascinating and beautiful. He replies that thanks to her, he found one more of those things. Curious, she asks what it is. Arnold laughs and says that if she still doesn't know, he won't tell her. His beloved says it's not fair. Does he really think a normal person can solve his puzzles? A normal person wouldn't explode a suspicious compound over her fiancé's house. Arnold strokes his princess's head, saying that still, he doesn't think it's a very difficult puzzle. At the moment, these differences may be minimal. But one after another, little by little, the future must also change. She hopes to see a beautiful life alongside her beloved Arnold. That is her greatest goal. That concludes the season of 7th Loop Time. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed it, please click the like button and subscribe to the channel for more. Have a great day and see you next time.